broadcasting live from Houston, from the space city to the world. You are watching Now Media Television.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Your Personal Real Estate, the show that brings you all the inside scoop on the dynamic world of buying and selling homes. I'm your host, Michelle Briggs, and today we have an exciting episode lineup for you. I'll start with, have you ever wondered what factors go into determining the perfect price for your property? Well, wonder no more. When it comes to selling your house, one of the most critical decisions you'll make is setting the right list price. It's a sweet spot that attracts potential buyers while maximizing the value you receive. But what factors should you consider? Well, first factor we need to consider is location. Location, 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 you hear it. It's not just a catchy phrase. It's a fundamental truth in the real estate world. The desirability of your neighborhood, proximity to amenities, schools, and transportation can significantly impact the listing price. Size and condition are also vital factors to consider. The number of bedrooms, bathrooms, and overall square footage play a significant role in determining the value of your house. Additionally, the condition of your property, including any recent renovations or upgrades, can affect its perceived value. Another important factor to consider is the price of comparable sales in your area. Comparable sales are homes that are similar in size, location, and condition to your house. By looking at the listing pictures and prices of the comparable sales, you can get a good idea of what buyers are willing to pay for a house like yours. Now, let's not forget about the market itself. The current state of the real estate market is a crucial factor. Local market conditions, supply and demand, and recent sales of comparable properties all come into play. It's important to conduct a comparative market analysis to determine a competitive and realistic price that will attract buyers while ensuring you get the best return on your investment. Now, finally, you need to consider your personal goals when setting the list price. Are you looking to sell quickly, or are you willing to wait for the buyer who is willing to pay your asking price? Within your CMA, your comparative market analysis, your realtor will provide you price per square foot for the maximum, minimum, and median prices in your area. So you will know what that range is to support your level of urgency within determining your listing price. Now, understanding this is just scratching the surface, and setting the right listing price is a delicate balance between understanding the market, evaluating your property's features, and appealing to the potential buyers. Do not price yourself out of the market, and do not leave money on the table. It is a fine balance. Find a realtor that knows your area, that is up to date on the real estate market. Do your research so that way you can make informed decisions. And we'll be right back with our guest after this commercial break. Welcome back, everyone. Michelle Briggs here, your host for Your Personal Real Estate. Now, we are here with Inna Radford. Now, you've seen her before. We love her contribution to this show. She has so much knowledge within the commercial field. And Inna, thank you so much for being with us today again.
Oh, glad to be here.
Wonderful. Now, one of the topic that we're going to be talking about today is the impact of sustainability trends on commercial real estate development, particularly in the context of warehouses and logistic facilities, right? Mm-hmm. So how are sustainability trends impacting the design and development of commercial real estate properties in our area, particularly in the context of warehouses and logistic facilities?
Absolutely. This is a very relevant and hot topic, right? We hear it everywhere these days about sustainability, about zero emissions, about zero carbon output, about saving whales, and environment became so important, and it's almost like an ethical issue to be responsible about the use of resources. So we see this great push for green buildings. And what does it mean? It's the building that is using the least amount of resources in the most efficient way, or it has some kind of way to regenerate resources. Very hot topic. But here's the candid answer. It's usually this request for green features comes from corporations, most likely public corporations, that are subject to this ESG, which is environmental sustainability governance, that calls for this. Or it may come from investors in buildings of this nature, or it may come with people that desire to own these buildings that are part of the institutional portfolio. So you would absolutely see the push from big corporations under the pressure for sustainability. When it comes to basic business owners, all the other companies, honestly, I don't see them focusing on this that much. I don't get those requests, and I barely ever get requests about how much their utilities will cost per month. It just seems to be this trend seems to be very relevant to big corporations.
Right. Well, the talk of sustainability is something that we do share in the residential side of things. Now, the commercial real estate, we've spoken before on a previous show, and really what they're purchasing, the time frame, and we talked about zoning, and when you're looking at the permitting process and just the dollars behind that. I don't know that I've even really heard of commercial really being and looking at that, I say sustainability, but you're talking about, with the green buildings so much.
And it's exactly the angle I wanted to kind of reveal. Think about this. If you were to develop a building, if you were to build a building, you're like, okay, I'm going to spend this amount of money, right? It's going to cost more to implement all these green technologies. The way I'm going to design my drainage, the way I'm going to design my coolage, or just all these advanced technologies, or adding solar. So the cost of all these advanced technologies, which are usually novel and new and expensive, versus the cost of the utility consumption. And now consider this. Most of the time in commercial, these are the tenants that are paying the utilities. So this is a candid question. What would you do? Would you be like, oh, let me spend all this money on this amazing technologies when I'm not even the one reaping the benefit of it? Tenants are paying utilities anyway. So that's just the honest position to take.
It is. It's the reality. There are so many homes that are within our market today. Again, I speak to the residential piece of it because it's what I know, and not every home that is being built today is a green home, because the expenses behind that and not having enough homes for us today. And even, commercial spaces, warehouses. Where are we at with that? Can you share a little bit? Because right now there's not enough residential homes in our market for today. Is that the same thing with commercial right now?
Yeah, pretty much. If you go on the websites of all the major big companies, brokerage companies, they will talk about it. But then again, this subject is literally, the inner circle of the subject is limited to big corporations that are subject to this pressure of environmental responsibility. Otherwise, it's not that popular, to be frank.
Got it. What are some of the most common sustainable features or certifications that businesses are looking for in their warehouse or logistic facilities?
So I'm going to go over the main 5, right? And it will resonate a lot with residential. One is energy efficiency. Gosh, if you go to Home Depot now, you'll see everything rated for energy. It's your windows, it's your light bulbs, it's your ceiling tiles. It's like how well the finishes within the building preserve the energy and hold it, how well insulated it is. Second one is the renewable energy. So that mostly pertains to solar, right? Obviously, unless you have some kind of a windmill at your house that can generate electricity, which is unlikely. But solar is very relevant. And it's Texas, so definitely, we can get some solar in Texas. And sometimes it can be beneficial because generally speaking, they say solar panels, the cost of solar panels does not really pay off. But in Texas, you can generate enough energy to actually sell it back to the grid, and you can actually make money doing that. The next one will be water efficiency, and that starts with your plumbing fixtures, which always, rated, saves you 20% on water. Then it goes to the plants you choose to plant at your building and how much water they consume. Then it goes into the way you irrigate them. Are you using any local natural resources to irrigate? any way your drainage flows to irrigate them, or you actually spending water out front, which, water is expensive here. Then we go to stormwater management, which seems to be like a boring subject, but frankly, it's not just water running down the parking lot, right? Now you can have your water running into the city system. It can go run into an underground tank and have a pump there, which may, pump the water back later for some useful purposes. Or there are these green stormwater designs that has to do with how you lay out your landscaping and the path of water draining and catching that landscaping on the way. And like you can achieve some really interesting savings in your irrigation by doing the proper, this sophisticated drainage design. Then the last one, but not the least, is the indoor quality, environment quality, and that has to do with plants that put out oxygen. It has to do with your air filters, the quality of air, and that's like very advanced level.
Now, how can a client or a customer ensure that the investment is meeting those requirements, the 5 that you just shared with us? How do we know?
Well, first of all, do you need to meet these requirements? Of course, it will be wonderful if you do. But at the end of the day, if you're an investor, your end goal is to make money, and the analysis have to come from that position. Whether investing in these features will pay off. Are you the one paying the utility bills? It's just pure calculation.
Now, you shared with us those 5 items. How can sustainable design features and practices benefit commercial real estate investors and tenants over the long term, in terms of both cost savings and environmental impact?
Yeah, well, for sure, it will make you feel wonderful about the environment and saving whales and just being so ethical and responsible. But then the answer is, what are you trying to achieve? Is it just about you feeling good, or is it about the bottom line? Are you building for yourself, right? If I was building something for myself to occupy, I would love to invest in all these technologies. Absolutely, I will enjoy them. I will feel good. They will pay off in the long run. I will save on utilities. But then if you're building to rent it out, then, are you the one paying the utility bills? Or are you targeting a certain tenant? If you're targeting that corporation or that public company that has to score this environmental points, then yeah, you probably want to have it to make it attractive. Or are you targeting that institutional investor that you've got to sell the building to? Or are you targeting a lender that cares about these points? It really depends, and you've got to know your market. You've got to know what your end goal is, and that's the position you would need to come from.
Are there any particular challenges or considerations that someone should be aware of when developing a sustainable commercial real estate property? And how can they ensure that they're making that sound investment in that area?
Well, again, the answer would be the cost of these technologies, of these novel technologies. Also, the long-term upkeep of these technologies. They're novel. We don't know them. We don't know if they will keep up, if they will be efficient. We don't know what the maintenance will be like. So just consider all that versus the benefit they will bring in terms of cost savings, and who is going to get the benefit of the savings.
Now, when we're talking about the sustainability and inside this whole conversation, what is our viewers' takeaway? When they're looking at potentially stepping into commercial real estate, and it's really identifying that end goal, as you were stating, and sitting down and you having a conversation with them is really what they're up to. And this is part of that conversation. What's the takeaway that our viewers have today inside of this conversation?
The takeaway would be do your best. It's just out of pure heart and out of pure care for the sustainability, for your environment. See if you can get some of these technologies incorporated. But if it becomes too much of a burden, it becomes too much of a cost, do your analysis, whether it will be worth it for you. And try to use some local resources, right? If you're in Texas, solar panels may make sense. Snow harvesting for irrigation purposes doesn't, because we got no snow. But see, what I would be looking at this. Is there a way to incorporate the sustainability technologies into my building at the least cost? Because the long term, we still don't know what the benefit is. Like, there has been no real study on, that will give you numbers to say this is the savings and this is how many whales you saved.
Right, for your business.
For your business, yeah.
Right. Right.
Exactly.
Well, Anna, thank you again for being with us today. I look forward to future conversations and educating our client, or I say clients, our viewers, and potential clients for you, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
really what it looks like to step into the commercial real estate space. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
And everyone, we'll be right back after this commercial break.
Oye, Lily dice que AT&T le da a todos las mejores ofertas.
Minus the air quotes.
Las mejores ofertas.
No need to wink. Others say they give everyone a deal, but not everyone gets the best deal.
Te lo dije, aquí las mejores ofertas son para todos con una variedad de planes.
You were right.
Is she always right?
Always.
En AT&T les damos a todos nuestras mejores ofertas en cada smartphone.
Hey, are you a small business owner that's struggling to double or triple your revenue and profits? My name is Michael Rager. I'm your business guide with Teach Your Business to Fish. Our success operating system will help you double or triple your profits every 2 to 3 years while actually maintaining some semblance of a home life. Call us at 713-201-5559 and we'll help you become a real success.
En esta era digital, las tarjetas de presentación de negocio son cosa del pasado. De hecho, la mayoría de las personas que las reciben las pierden en cuestión de minutos. La videotarjeta de negocios de Now Media es un video de su negocio especialmente creado por nuestros expertos con toda su información de contacto, los productos y servicios de su negocio y puede ser enviado de manera rápida utilizando su teléfono móvil. Cientos de negocios ya están viendo la diferencia. Llámenos hoy al 832-384-9588.
¿Sueñas con vender tus productos o servicios en Estados Unidos? Pareciera muy difícil, mas no es imposible. Soy Edmundo Treviño y quiero compartir contigo más de 20 años de experiencia promoviendo productos latinoamericanos en el principal mercado del mundo. Si quieres aprender más, sígueme en todas mis redes sociales.
Welcome back, everyone, to Your Personal Real Estate. I'm your host, Michelle Briggs, and we are continuing our show today with Ann Tran. Now, you may have met Ann Tran last week. She is a mortgage loan originator with Envoy Mortgage. How are you doing today, Ann?
I'm doing really good. Thanks for asking.
Wonderful. I'm so glad that you're here with us again today because this is a very important topic. Now, the loan process in buying a home, it's not as easy as it used to be many years ago. We've mentioned that before. So today we really wanted to talk about the first-time home buyer. What does that look like? I know you do an educational class on it, and the class is an hour. It could take up to an hour to have this conversation, just educating people. Today we're just going to take segments of those. So the viewers, if you are thinking about buying a home, you're a first-time home buyer, sit down and watch the next 12 minutes of this show and learn what it really looks like to be a new homeowner. So, Ann, what is the first step when you are educating potential home buyers, potential clients for yourself? What is the first thing? How do you start that conversation?
Well, we got to get into the finances, right? My first question is, how much are you prepared to put down on your future home investment? Most oftentimes, your first-time home buyer is going to look like a renter or somebody who lives at home with their parents. Or they have roommates, but renters. And so that amount of money you're paying a month is going to increase substantially. So again, we're going to look into your credit score, your income, see if there's anything we need to work on in order to get you approved, like increasing your credit score, increasing your income, finding additional sources of money to help you with the assets and maybe helping you with the home purchase and furniture purchasing and all the other processes like inspection and appraisal.
Mm-hmm. Well, working with someone that's currently renting a property, right? That's normally what we see. That's the majority of your first-time home buyers. And our rental rates, are increasing and have been increasing. I mean, and it's been significant increases, if I can say that word. Now, the reason why I kind of get excited and get on the edge of my seat about it is because, yes, the rates are higher. So I personally just helped a buyer, first-time home buyer, and at the end of the day, and it was Envoy Mortgage, was the lender, And what we discovered at the end of the day, their difference between the rental that they had, and they were in an apartment complex, and the final mortgage payment with escrow, it was only like $200. I mean, that is not a whole lot. I mean, would you agree, Ann?
Oh, I agree. But, you know, with home buying and home ownership, there's a lot more additional expenses to consider. And you're looking at taxes and your homeowner's insurance. So that's going to be rolled into your monthly as well. And if you buy a home in a subdivision that has an HOA, you're going to also have an HOA fee as well. So these are things to consider when it comes to your home budget as you go forward into your investment.
That is true. So, you know, sustainability I know is very important. It is very important for me and my business, and I know it's important for Envoy Mortgage and your team, and making sure those HOA fees, and if the property's in a flood zone and things of that nature. So when they are the first-time home buyer, when they sit down in front of you, we touched on a lot of the process. Can we get like specific and deep down into when you're sitting across from them, what is the questions that they're asking, or what are you asking them?
Well, first, when you sit down with me, I want you to tell me your story. I'm going to sit and listen. I want to, know what's going on. I'm going to find out again what your income is, your occupation, your goals for the future, what you're looking at. Again, it's not always a short-term goal. It's a long-term goal. Oftentimes, we just need to get you situated and started. From there, we again talk about your credit score. Again, what we need to do, working on your debts. We talk about what to expect. When you buy your home, what's going on at the closing table, like what happens when your offer is accepted. So it's great that I have this experience with the 9 years of real estate, because now when I'm talking to my clients, I can help, guide them through that process and helping them have them what to expect when they start working with a realtor.
Right. So when you've gone over the list of requirements for the pre-approval, and you've determined, you've checked their credit, and you've determined that, let's just for example purposes, that their credit score, you've discovered, or they shared with you inside of that story the struggles they may be having and what their personal goals are with home ownership. And what if someone tells you that their score is under 720? What is that conversation?
Oh, if their score is under 720, I mean, it's still doable. I tell people try to aim for like 680 to 720 is a good range to be in, but we'll take and consider credit scores as low as 620. We just need to figure out what we need to do to get it higher. Maybe we need to remove some of the debts that's on your credit score, and then we can recast it. We do a credit simulator, and then find out what your new credit score is going to be, and see what terms and interest rates you'll be able to be qualified for then.
Great. So after the credit repair, let's say credit repair process, once that's complete, the job. Now, what are the job requirements to obtain a loan?
The job requirements? Well, you need to work at your job for at least 2 years. Okay. They want to see consistent work history. I mean, it doesn't have to be consecutive, but they do want to see that you've been working for 2 years collectively. There's that. There's your residential history. So they want to make sure that your rental history is on point. You've been there for at least a year or two. 2 years is normally what we're looking for. So 2 years of tax returns as well. Bank statements, 2 months. Paycheck stubs, about 2 months. So, most often people will have these documents if they've got a regular W-2 job.
Wonderful. Now they've got their pre-approval letter. They've met with the realtor. They have their pre-approval letter, and let's just say the pre-approval letter has them first-time home buyer purchasing at $400,000. Do you recommend that they look at homes for $400,000?
I recommend they look at homes based on what their monthly budget threshold is, they're comfortable with. And with Envoy, we have a program called Mortgage Coach that we use to help you demonstrate 4 scenarios for you to make a decision that's best for you. So, like for instance, we can show you a scenario where you put 3% down versus 20% down, or 10% down, and then from there we can see what your monthly expenses are going to be and which program works best for you. So whether you want to buy a house for $400,000 or buy a house for $350,000, we can just look at the numbers and see what's best for you and your circumstances.
Right. You talked about this system. You were just sharing with the system with the 4 scenarios. I personally have experienced that system. I'm in love with it because you really do it as a real time. You do not have to be in the same room. It can be a Zoom meeting, and you have that discussion about interest, about how much you're putting down. That if it's 15, 20, that 30-year note, whatever that is for you, and it changes real time. Is that correct?
Oh, that's so true. I mean, I know a lot of people are concerned about interest rates today, but just keep in mind that interest rate does not lock until you find a home and the offer has been accepted. So, and from there, your interest rate is good for 30 days. So as the market is fluctuating, and right now it might be a little bit high, and you don't want to apply, you might want to just get in and start the process so that when it does go down, that you're ready to attack the market when it's good to go. So, yes.
So the pre-approval, so we have the pre-approval, they're working with a realtor, they found the home, the offer was accepted, what's next?
Oh man, the offer is accepted. Next, you're going into inspection, correct? Right? You go through an inspection. There's a 7-day, maybe 10-day option period. Go through your negotiations over there, and then there is an appraisal. That's another expense that you'll have to consider. An appraisal the lender requires to make sure the home value is what it says, and that way they're giving you the right amount of money for the home. And then from there, you just probably some more documentation needed, oftentimes. But after the appraisal is done and everything looks good to go, you just wait for the clear to close.
Right, so one of the things I always tell my clients is when we are looking for the home and when a contract is accepted, it's fast because it's option period, it's inspections, it is paying for the appraisal because the lender, we'll talk about appraisals, the lender has to be able to justify the loan amount, right? So if you buy a home at $300 and it appraises at $250, you're going to get a loan for $250, is that correct? Or how does that work when you look at appraised value to offer price?
So there's a lot involved in terms of like your DTI, how much you're going to be putting down on the table, whether you have the assets. So, you know, if you have to bring more to the table to cover the differences in value, that may affect your debt to income ratio. So it will definitely affect your loan. You can negotiate 3 ways about it, I believe. Either you can they can come negotiate with the seller to reduce the amount, or you can come up with more money to make the difference. And I believe the third one is, I guess, cancel the deal, right?
That is accurate. That is true. I mean, we do go back, and the appraisal is a point of renegotiation, potential point of renegotiation, as well as after the home inspection. And we heard from TJ earlier, you know, with the home inspections, that is potential repair negotiations. So once that is complete and an amendment has been sent, you know the appraisal's been met, and we're moving forward. What's the next step for your borrower?
I mean, if everything's good to go, just start getting ready to come to the closing table, start looking at furniture maybe to start buying. I think just looking forward to the closing table, sitting down, signing documents, get those closing disclosures. So those closing disclosures, otherwise known as a CD, and I think there's also known as a good faith estimate these days, or there's something.
There is. Yeah, I mean, yes,
new words.
So we definitely there are different. I'm so used to we're used to HUD, we're used to track,
yeah.
We're used to
a lot of changes.
Yes, there's a lot of changes to it. I can't even think of the words. I was entitled for 20 years. So anyway, but there's a process, right? Once you get the appraisal, once it's complete, us as realtors, we're waiting for that final clear to close, and the final clear to close is where that file goes pushed back into underwriting. And correct me if I'm wrong, Ann. Goes back to underwriting for any additional items that are needed. And you mentioned about furniture. Now we all know that don't buy the furniture, right? Don't buy the furniture. Don't buy the new car. You do nothing. Is that right, Ann?
Oh yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned this because a lot of people do this. They want to get so excited. They want to go to Rooms to Go and they want to put everything on their credit or open another account to buy furniture. Please do not do that. Do not incur any other debts while you're in the mortgage loan process, while you're in the process of buying a home. This will change your financial circumstances and may end up botching the deal, or delaying it. I mean, more often not botching it. So please do not put anything on credit during this process because, you may not have a home to buy furniture for.
That has happened to me when I was in the title business. I get the world of that. We had someone that came in, went to do the closing. At that time, the lender was checking credit again, popped up a new line of credit for all the brand new furniture, and they did not fund the transaction, and they walked away from that deal. So do not do anything. And we are at the end of our time here. Thank you so much for being with us again today. I look forward to our next conversation. Maybe we finish up this first-time home buyer process because we just scratched the surface.
I'd love that. I loved being here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And we'll be right back after this commercial break.
Oye, Lily dice que AT&T le da a todos las mejores ofertas.
Minus the air quotes.
Las mejores ofertas.
No need to wink. Others say they give everyone a deal, but not everyone gets the best deal.
Te lo dije, aquí las mejores ofertas son para todos con una variedad de planes.
You were right.
Is she always right?
Always.
En AT&T les damos a todos nuestras mejores ofertas en cada smartphone.
Hey, are you a small business owner that's struggling to double or triple your revenue and profits? My name is Michael Rager. I'm your business guide with Teach Your Business to Fish. Our success operating system will help you double or triple your profits every 2 to 3 years while actually maintaining some semblance of a home life. Call us at 713-201-5559 and we'll help you become a real success.
En esta era digital, las tarjetas de presentación de negocio son cosa del pasado. De hecho, la mayoría de las personas que las reciben las pierden en cuestión de minutos. La videotarjeta de negocios de Now Media es un video de su negocio especialmente creado por nuestros expertos con toda su información de contacto, los productos y servicios de su negocio y puede ser enviado de manera rápida utilizando su teléfono móvil. Cientos de negocios ya están viendo la diferencia. Llámenos hoy al 832-384-9588.
¿Sueñas con vender tus productos o servicios en Estados Unidos? Pareciera muy difícil, mas no es imposible. Soy Edmundo Treviño y quiero compartir contigo más de 20 años de experiencia promoviendo productos latinoamericanos en el principal mercado del mundo. Si quieres aprender más, sígueme en todas mis redes sociales.
Welcome back, everyone. Michelle Briggs here, your host for Your Personal Real Estate. Today we have Andrew Glisson. I'm so excited about him being on our show today. He is a real estate investor, and we are going to be talking about the importance of market research. How do you analyze market trends and indicators to identify areas with high potential for rehab and rental properties? How are you doing today, Andrew?
I'm great, Michelle. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Now, this is your first time with us, and I want to take an opportunity for you to share with us who you are and talk about the business, your business.
Sure. I'm Andrew Glisson. Thanks for having me on the show. And I am a real estate investor. I own about 200 single-family rental properties. I scaled it from 0 to 200 over the course of about 3.5 years, buying really the worst properties that I could possibly find, renovating them to a high standard, and we rent them out long-term. Most of them, we rent them out long-term to residents. And so we have these few single-family rentals. I've flipped dozens of houses, but that's what I am. I'm a real estate investor.
So I have to ask you, what got you started? Why
you know,
did you choose that?
It's a long story, but I was working for a Fortune 50 company as a senior vice president of business development, and I had gone through a series of acquisitions where my smaller company got bought by the bigger company, and I got put on hiatus for 18 months. And as a business development guy, when your small company's getting bought by a bigger one, you don't have anything to do. And so on the side, I started buying real estate, and that part-time hobby just snowballed into, full-time, let's go, turbocharge, started buying real estate, and that's just kind of how it started.
There is such a return in that investment. I'm a realtor. I'm a huge fan of real estate. It's a good investment. All right, so what is the importance of conducting market research when identifying areas with a high potential for investment?
Look, market research is important, okay? Like, everybody wants to make money in real estate and not lose money in real estate. In investment properties, that's the main name of the game. So you can put your money a lot of different places. And if you're going to invest in real estate, then you need to know where you're going to put it. And I always tell people, if you look at the iBuyers, and I'm not going to name them, but there's a lot of iBuyers out there. They've had very poor success in real estate. And there's 2 reasons why. Number one, they invested 100% in the research, but they didn't have the relationship game down. And you have to have the relationship game down. So market research is like looking at data, but it's also boots on the ground, having experience in the neighborhood and doing research that way. So it's critically important. If you're going to make money, you got to do the research.
Definitely. So being geographically aware of your environment, right, of a community, of what you're listing and selling, it's part of our ethics.
Right.
And when you have iBuyers come in, they just went in and gave these high bids, and people were just thinking they just made the best deal. And at the end of the day, I think most sellers walked away with about 85%, right, of that
100%.
Proceeds, if I can think of that, or equity in their home. Now, walk us through some of the analysis you perform when assessing the potential of a market for investment properties.
I always tell people you have to start nationally, right? We want to start at a very broad level, and we want to drill down to the local neighborhood. So we want to look at national trends, and we can look at census data. Where are people moving from and where are people moving to? They're going from high tax states to low tax states. They're going where, you know, the climate is super cold down to where the climate's really hot, like in Texas, where we're at here. And so they want to be places that they can be outside, do fun things, and not pay a lot of taxes. So that's the first step. Where are people moving to? The second step is, within that state, if you can identify those states that people are moving to, tons of data out there, let's look at the county level data. In that state, what counties are people moving to? And there's lots of state universities that publish county level data that show you what counties are growing, and that's what we want to look at. So within the county, what is the urban environment or the suburban environment that people are moving to? Lots of data on that. This is where the relationship piece of this comes into play. There's lots of data on where people are moving to and the population trends, but the relationship side is where it takes over next. Within those cities, within those urban and suburban environments, we need to talk to people on the ground if we're not local to that community. So I have investments in a few different cities, and so I know people on the ground, boots on the ground. I'm going to go talk to those people and find out, where are people moving to within this environment? Where should I invest in? Where should I be putting my money? And so locally, we can identify neighborhoods, but that's where the relationship side moves in. That's one of the best tools that I could encourage you. Look at that data from a state level down to the county, and then build on the relationship.
How does that analysis help you identify areas with, with high growth and rental demand?
So high growth, obviously is going to follow significant investment. Residents are going to move around things that they want to be around. So restaurants, mixed-use communities, commercial, redevelopment. And so one of my tricks is I go and talk to developers in town. I build relationships with the people who are thinking about 10, 15, 20-year projects. I'm becoming friends with them, and I'm finding out from them, where are you pulling permits? Where are you going to be building, your next big investment? And you can find this stuff on, local business journals. There's a lot of local, in every single community, there's local real estate papers that you can go and find data on who's pulling permits. And then at the end of the day, there are only a few people who build cities. And so you can go meet those people who are building these cities, who are doing this big investment, and residential real estate is going to follow that.
So you're just sharing about, it sounded like you were talking about some methodologies. What data sources do you typically rely on? What are those methodologies that you use to interpret and evaluate that data?
So, we're talking about real estate investment and how to invest in property and know that you're going to make money. And one of the actual data sources that I use that I like a lot. Obviously, a lot of people go to Zillow, a lot of people go to Realtor.com, and you can tell what houses sell for, what houses are selling for, what's available in the market, for sale, for rent. I like a website called PropStream. It combines some of the best MLS data that's out there. If you're not a realtor and you don't have access to the MLS data, it combines actual sales data in the market. It combines what things have rented for. And so when you're doing market research, you can click on an address and you can see there are so many data points within this software that you can see exactly who the mortgage is behind that, how much they owe. You can find distressed sellers. So there are tools that we use, and that's one of them to identify kind of within that market. Once you identify at that neighborhood level, when you start to build, develop your opportunity pipeline for investment properties, that's a good way and a good tool that you can actually run some analysis on those properties by utilizing some of that those data sources online. Look, PropStream is only one website out of a lot that you can go and buy a subscription to and find market research. But that's one I like a lot, and it's helped me a lot as I'm looking at opportunities to buy in my local community after I've already done kind of that boots on the ground market research.
Now, how do you assess profitability and feasibility of rehab and rental properties in a particular market, based on your market research findings? Are there any specific metrics or factors that you prioritize in your analysis?
So there's a few things that you have to do in order to qualify an opportunity that's going to actually be a good investment. So you have to understand what the ARV is. What is the after repair value of this property? What's the maximum that I can either sell it for, or that it can be appraised if I'm going to cash my money out and refinance it with a bank? So what's the ARV? And then the next thing that you have to identify is, and I'm a big proponent of renovating houses. I've renovated hundreds of houses. I love doing it. I like getting my hands dirty. I like finding the dogs and improving them, because I think the first way to invest in real estate and make a good investment is to buy it right. But the second way that you do it is to renovate that property and to add value. So after you establish the ARV, what's the max that this house can sell for? The second thing that we're going to do is we're going to find how much is it going to cost me to get it to that point, right? So how much is it going to cost me to renovate? So we go in and we build our renovation module and methodology and our cost basis on how it's going to renovate, how much it's going to cost to renovate. And then we know how much we can offer for this house in order to build in that margin. And so that's really, the steps that I go through to find the numbers. And then once I run in, and then you have to identify how much you can rent it for if you're not going to flip it. If you're going to sell it, you already know what the ARV is. If you're going to rent it, you have to know how much you can rent it for. And so I run comps, rental comps, to find out how much I'm going to rent it for. Once you have those 4 key components, then you're going to run some analysis on that. I like IRR, internal rate of return. And what that means is how much money am I going to make on what I'm about to deploy on this piece of real estate, and how much better is that than if I just stick it in the stock market or another investment. If I'm going to do better in real estate than I can in the stock market or another investment, then it's a good investment. That's one key financial metric. There's a lot of them, but that's one I like a lot, because I can just stick money in the stock market and make money. It's a lot of work to invest in real estate, to find assets, to renovate. You're going to hold it for a long time. You've got expenses with banks. So there's a lot that goes into it. So I've got to have a risk and return premium above what I can get in the stock market. So I like IRR, but that's a good way to quantify, how much am I going to make on this asset. But you got to know some data points on that piece of real estate before you can really even build the numbers. But you got to go by the numbers. I tell people, don't get emotional on the real estate. If you find a deal that you love and you're in love with, you're going to ignore the spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet's going to tell you not to buy it. Don't buy it.
There you go. That is the truth. That is the reality of it. So can you share an example where market research helped you identify an area with high potential for rehab and rental properties?
The best deal that I ever did, I bought 15 duplexes in a city that was on a very main street. Everybody knew it. I spent $3 million buying these properties and renovating them. And once I was done, they appraised for 4.2. I was able to pull all my money out. Look, I would not have had success on this opportunity had I not known what to buy it at the right price, because the seller started out, we were materially apart on what I wanted to buy it for and what he wanted to sell it for. It took me 6 months to get him there. This was all on a cold call, by the way. I had to know what my renovation numbers were. I had to dial them in right, and I hit those numbers perfectly. And I knew that I was going to hit, a $4+ million valuation. But why did I buy it there? Why did I target that community? Because I'd done my boots on the ground research. I knew that a friend of mine was going to build a $100 million hotel a couple of blocks down. I knew that the high school across the street was going to be transitioned from a city school to a charter school, which was going to bring a lot more people and investment in the neighborhood. So there's a lot of data that said, oh, real estate values are going up here, but then the boots on the ground told me this is where I got to be and this is a solid investment. And then the other things, the renovation expertise and things like that, you're going to have to get some help on if you're not. I'm a general contractor, licensed general contractor, so I know what things cost. But if you don't have that, you got to kind of build that into your process. But I think success on that project was largely, there was some experience there, but I knew that was where significant investments in that city were going to be. And I felt like it was going to be a home run. It ultimately was.
Well, it sounds like it was a home run for you, Andrew. So
definitely.
I am so excited about you being a part of this show, and I'm excited about the next conversation that we have. Andrew, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
And everyone, we'll be right back after this commercial break. Welcome back, everyone, to Your Personal Real Estate. We are continuing our show today, and we are excited to have Saji Salam back. Now, you've seen him before, you will see him again. His information that he's providing to us and to you viewers is very insightful and is educational, and I'm excited having him on a part of our show. Now, Saji Salam, he is the principal of Care Ventures Capital. How are you doing today?
Oh, very, very good, Michelle, and thanks for having me again.
I enjoy you being here. I learn so much every time you're with us. Now today, we're going to start with what is a real estate syndication?
Let me try and keep this very simple. Basically, even though we use the word syndication, it is not very complicated. It just simply says that we are pulling together or pooling together a bunch of investors and then coming together to buy an asset, right? So you could syndicate a single family home if you want to. So it's just, it's just a group of investors. And in a single family situation, you don't need several people to come together and pool their investments to buy a single family home. But in a multifamily and large commercial real estate transactions, the deal sizes are large, and typically we see anything 10 million and up. And so, it makes sense to have investors come together, pool their resources, and this is what we call a syndicated real estate transaction.
I understand. How do you go about with syndicated real estate transactions? How do you go about that?
The syndications have a certain structure, and the basic structure is that there are a bunch of people who are called the general partners, and then there are the investors who are called the limited partners. So this is the commonest structure out there. You can make it as fancy as possible, but end of the day, there is the general partner, and the general partner or partners are the people who do a certain set of duties within this whole syndication framework. And to go through those roles, some of the roles are, we call them, one of those are boots on the ground. So boots on the ground is just that, boots on the ground. So we had an asset in Augusta, Georgia, and we had a partner who was based out of Atlanta who would be visiting the property. He was part of the deal sourcing and keeps visiting the property regularly after we take on the asset. So boots on the ground is the person or the partner with that local knowledge and local presence. In Houston, I would be, among other things, boots on the ground as well. Right? The second piece is deal sourcing. So there's one partner or many partners may be involved in deal sourcing, which is finding the deals, having the relationship with people like you who are in the real estate space, and finding those deals and then going on to underwrite those deals. And again, these roles are not specific to just one person. There may be situations where one deal sponsor does many of these things. I do most of this except for the construction and renovation part. But there are situations where it is more clear-cut, where one partner does this and the other partner does that. So there's division of labor, and that is what partners are for. So once the partner does the underwriting, then there's a piece for the physical due diligence. And that goes hand in hand with the construction and renovation partner, because he or she is the one who's got more insight into the due diligence. As I've talked about in the past sessions, due diligence would entail others going into each of the units, walking them, figuring out what needs to be done from renovation, etc. And so in our case, when we do assets which have a renovation component in it, we bring in a partner who's got a construction background, and so that is another role that one or many of the partners do.
Now that you've sourced the deal, like what is next?
So we talked about some of the roles that the partners do in the front end of the transaction, right? Finding the deal and then walking it, doing the due diligence and all that. After that, there are still more things that need to be done, right? So there is financing. You need to buy this property, so you need to bring in finance for it. And for finance, there are two big components that, at a high level, that the partner gets involved in. One is sourcing the debt or the loan from the bank, and the other is finding the equity or the investors to invest typically in the down payment. So those are the two big pieces in the financing of the deal. Moving on, there is also a role for somebody to execute the transaction. There's a lot of work involved in interacting with the lender, creating the loan documents that are required, providing them the loan documents that are required, working with the vendors. You have the insurance vendors, you have the property management vendor. So for all these, there's a lot of paperwork and time involved in reviewing and approving a lot of these documents. So that is one part of it, which continues all the way till the closing of the transaction with the title company and the lender. And even after that, there's still more work to be done. And the two big pieces that are out there are asset management. So that is the part where you're really taking care of the asset. So you'll be providing oversight over the property management company, making sure that the lender reporting and insurance reporting and interactions with the lender and the insurance and other vendors are smooth at a high level. And the property management company will do the nitty-gritty, but we still need to have the oversight of it. So those are the key roles in any multifamily syndication scenario.
Now, Saji, what is the time frame? What is the average time frame when you find that asset and you're sourcing and everything that you just shared with us? What is the average time frame from discovery to close, if you will?
Okay. So in the multifamily world, the time to close a transaction can be anywhere from 3 months to 6 months. Could even be longer, depending on the kind of transaction. So for typical transactions, you would have to ballpark somewhere between 60 to 90 days for sure. That would be a good rule of thumb.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because I was thinking it sounded, because of the detailed work that you do, at Care Ventures Capital, and ensuring that this is the investment, or secure investment, if you will. It just seemed like it would take so much longer, but I love that it's that short term, because you can really see that light at the end of the tunnel inside of that investment, right?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there is a point where you see the light at the end of the tunnel, for sure.
Now, what are some of the pros and cons of partnership?
So the reason we have partnership is for many reasons. There are situations where you need that kind of involvement to get this up and running. It is time and effort intensive, so you would love to share the load with a bunch of people. So that is one. The other is the skill sets that the partners bring to the table. So for instance, if you have a construction company as your partner, then you don't have to worry about anything related to the construction or renovation side of things. They are the experts. So that's something that, that's the other reason to have several partners. The third reason is that there is finance involved. You need to bring money from the investors to the table. You have to do some paperwork with the lender, which involves your net worth and liquidity. So for those, you may not be having the liquidity for 100 million transactions. So you definitely need partners who can contribute to that liquidity and other financial underwriting requirements from the lender. So there is that element of effort involved, and that is what brings these partners together. But at the same time, that can also become not go very well, because there are partners who would take on something and it does not get done, or they don't have the time, and so those things can go wrong. So there is that's one of the challenges with this partnership, and it is a partnership that comes together for a transaction, and sometimes these partners stay on to do maybe 3 or 4 transactions. Many a time then there is, depending on how the partnership went, there is a realignment of the partnerships when somebody does the next deal. So it is a little intensive in just managing the partnership. And in terms of something like a construction company partner, like I said, there's the benefit of bringing a construction company as a partner because now you don't have to worry about the construction part of it. But at the same time, now you also need to be keeping the construction company accountable, right? So now this is a partner, and you need to make his company be accountable for delivering the work. We need to make that company accountable to make sure that they stay within the budget that we provide. So those are definitely challenges when you have a construction company as a partner. And then the third situation that I have run into is where you have a deal sponsor who is on an acquisition spree and ends up buying thousands of units. And now, without the team to execute, the partner is stretched. And when a partner is stretched, then it'll impact not only the new deals that the partner is signing up, but also the existing deals. So these are some of the broad challenges that you run into in a partnership situation in multifamily.
Now, Saji, there's so much more for us to learn from you, and we appreciate you and who you are for us and providing the education that you do and who you are for our community. And I thank you for being with us today. And everyone, will be right back after this commercial break.
Oye, Lily dice que AT&T le da todas las mejores ofertas.
Minus the air quotes.
Las mejores ofertas.
No need to wink. Others say they give everyone a deal, but not everyone gets the best deal.
Te lo dije, aquí las mejores ofertas son para todos con una variedad de planes.
You were right.
Is she always right?
Always.
En AT&T les damos a todos nuestras mejores ofertas en cada smartphone.
En esta era digital, las tarjetas de presentación de negocio son cosa del pasado. De hecho, la mayoría de las personas que las reciben las pierden en cuestión de minutos. La videotarjeta de negocios de Now Media es un video de su negocio especialmente creado por nuestros expertos con toda su información de contacto, los productos y servicios de su negocio, y puede ser enviado de manera rápida utilizando su teléfono móvil. Cientos de negocios ya están viendo la diferencia. Llámenos hoy al 832-384-9588.
¿Sueñas con vender tus productos o servicios en Estados Unidos? Pareciera muy difícil, mas no es imposible. Soy Edmundo Treviño y quiero compartir contigo más de 20 años de experiencia promoviendo productos latinoamericanos en el principal mercado del mundo. Si quieres aprender más, sígueme en todas mis redes sociales.
Thank you to all of our guests today and to you, our viewers. This show airs Thursday at 5 p.m. and we want to be your resource for all things real estate. Should you be looking to sell your house or buy a new home, I invite you to allow me to be of service to you and your family. I'm your host, Michelle Briggs, and this is Your Personal Real Estate.
This has been a Now Media television feature presentation. All rights reserved. Broadcasting live from Houston, from the space city to the world, you are watching Now Media Television.